Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Diary of a CMO. I'm very excited about today's episode, as I was about the last one. And there's a reason. The reason is kind of similar to the last episode I recorded. Maybe the one, maybe not what I released. It's because the last episode I recorded was a conversation with a gentleman who is very heavy in the reputation management space. Why I was excited about that is because over the last 20 plus episodes we've done with the Diary of a CMO, we have focused mainly on marketing in its classic sense within consumer goods mostly, and I think telco for one as well. But I'm excited about this one because it goes into a whole new space, which is primarily retail, even though there's a bit of online and e-commerce to that as well, but primarily retail. That's why I'm excited about this, and I'm excited to have my guest today. This is another guest that when you read the profile and what they've done, you just save yourself the energy and say, you know what, no matter how hard you try to introduce this person, you're not going to do justice. But I'm so honored and I'm excited to have with me today Melanie Van Rooy. Oh my God, I goofed again.
You got it.
Oh man, I have with me on the episode today, Mel Van Rooy. Mel, thank you so much for joining me on the Diary of a CMO.
Thank you so much, Tayo, and it's an absolute pleasure and an honor. Can't wait.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, very quickly, I have to say thank you because you're doing this while on holiday. I mean, I know folks who would not touch anything once they're on vacation. So I deeply appreciate you taking time out,
It's
to
a
do this
pleasure.
with the podcast. Thank you so much. Now, for those who are meeting you for the first time, how would you like to introduce yourself to them?
Cool. So, yeah, as I say, I'm Mel Van Rooy. It's actually a sort of a Dutch surname, so I know everybody struggles with it. So, no harm done there, Tayo. Absolutely. I am I'm a mom. I'm a grandmother. I'm a marketer. And I'm just a lover of life. And I have managed over a long and illustrious career to just balance all of this stuff because, at the end of it, we are not parts, we are a whole. And, managing and balancing all of this is what we're doing right now, being a grandma and a mom and a CMO and having this chat with you in Nigeria and I'm sitting in the US. Do we just not live in an amazing world? We live in an amazing world. I'm so passionate about marketing, where we are going, the unbelievable advancements that we've seen in the last couple of years and where we are going and just how data has become so core of who we are. I mean, many, many moons ago when I did a PhD in econometrics, did I ever think I would end up being a CMO? Hell no. And here I am today. So, that's in short who I am.
Wow. So I'm going to do this because this is about I think the third time I'm having to have this conversation I'm about to have with you. Um, along these specific lines. Now, when you started introducing yourself, you started by saying the first thing you said was that you were a mom. The next thing you said was that you were a grandma. The third you said marketer and lover of life. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was it in that order intentionally, or it just so happens?
I think that was just so it happens because I think that's sort of my priorities in life. I think now that you say it, it's very much how I prioritize my life. Family is unbelievably important to me. And as much as I love my job, I always say to the young guys that I mentor, you work to live, you don't live to work. And if you don't have that balance at some point in your life, it will come back and bite you. And therefore, I have really tried. And it's interesting that you picked it up. But those are in order my super important things in life. Without it, none of this would be worth it. And they've lived this career with me. When I worked for Coke, I'll never forget going into an outlet on our way to a holiday or whatever. And my children would say, "Mom, please don't talk to them about their fridge. Please don't say anything to the store owner about their fridge," because I was so passionate about the brands in those fridge. And today I can see them. My kids are young adults, and I can see how they're living that in their lives as well. And I want to leave that legacy, Eta, that we are set up with, we put together with different portions, but you have to be clear about what is important for you in life. Otherwise, you'll just get trapped in running in a little, circle all the time. And I've been very blessed to have a very supportive family. And also, I come from a very big family. We've 5 siblings. 3 of us have PhDs, right? So we come from a very academic family. And it's just been amazing to have that support throughout my career, which has been insane. I had unbelievable parents. My dad died 4 years ago in COVID, and he was my biggest supporter next to my mom. And so, yeah, I'll call it a family enterprise. And I can see the marketer in my children, and that makes me very proud. They will never admit to that, though, but they are. In their hearts, they are.
Oh, man, that is amazing. That's amazing. I was having a similar conversation with Natasha Maharaj, Global Brands Director at Heineken International. And it was the same thing. It just feels like talking to you about this right now, it just feels like deja vu. Because for her as well, it was the same thing, and it's really exciting to listen to. I think that, the younger version, I'm still young, still very young. I'm a parent. I'm not a grandparent yet. My kids are still very, little, but, but to kind of listen to you and see how, after all these years, professionally, you can say hand on heart that this really is the most important thing to you, family. And that's really amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing. When I get into these kinds of conversation, I could spend a whole hour talking about these kinds of conversation. But I've also learned that my audience, they want to hear the marketing stuff. They want to geek out on those kinds of things. We'll give them that. We'll give them that. So you touched on legacy. You touched on, losing your dad. I'm not going to get into those now, maybe later on. But you touched on PhDs as well. 3 PhDs. Yeah. You know what?
Yeah.
So that I don't embarrass my family. So I don't embarrass my family, I'm going to leave that aside as well for now. But speaking of PhDs, a PhD in econometrics, now you are in marketing. How did that happen?
Isn't that just amazing? So to give you a little bit of background allow me to give you a little bit of background on where I started. I wanted to be a gynecologist. My entire life, I wanted to be a gynecologist. I was going to become a medical doctor, and I was going to have these wonderful babies born under my care, etc., etc. The only thing that remained is that I am a doctor, but I'm not a medical doctor.
Interesting.
You're going to laugh what I'm going to tell you now, but I had a very serious boyfriend when I was in my final year at school, and I just could not see myself being separated from this guy. You're 17, 18, and you think this is the love of your life. I did end up marrying him, and he gave me 2 wonderful children. We aren't together anymore, but we're still very good friends. And then I said to my dad, look, I need to go study in Johannesburg, where this guy was studying. And I remember calling my brother, who had just finished studying at that time. And I said to him, I don't know what to study now, because my entire life I was going to become a medical doctor. And he said, you know what, Mel, you love maths. There's this course called econometrics, and I see all the clever kids study econometrics. You should do that. My dad said, look, you had a bursary for medical. I don't have money to let you study that. We should apply for a bursary. And I then got a bursary to study actuarial science while I was doing econometrics, right? Love for numbers. I had no idea what it meant. I'll be honest with you. Here's this 17-year-old, dewy-eyed, going to Johannesburg and not knowing what the hell I'm studying. But my brother said this is a great course, right? I finished econometrics, landed up in a banking group, got poached by the Reserve Bank, and that's where I really, my love for numbers. I started out in the econometrics team there, which was the first time where I got really an idea of how important the decisions that you make, that the model that I help build will determine the interest rate in an entire country. And that's a hell of a responsibility, right? And I'll talk about inflection points later. Let's fast forward. When I was about 36, after having a stint in academia, et cetera, I got a call from a guy that worked for SAB Miller, which is the big beer company in South Africa, which was recently bought out by AB InBev. And they were the Coca-Cola, one of the biggest Coca-Cola bottler in South Africa, called ABI, Amalgamated Beverage Industries. And this guy also had an econometrics background, Boyce Lloyd, one of the biggest influences in my life. And he said to me, look, I want to start a research unit in the Coke bottling side, and I have a position open for a head of strategy and research. Are you interested? And I thought, whoa, right? This is big. And at an age of 36, I climbed into corporate, which meant I was about 10 years behind my peers because I had chosen to go the academia route first. And he was the marketing director at the time. And so I sat in the marketing team, and in that, being part of the entire, so Coke had a system. It was the Coca-Cola company itself, and then it was the 4 bottlers in South Africa, and that formed the marketing forum. And I was so privileged to sit on this marketing forum. And then I realized, oh my word, I love marketing. I have a knack for the creative. I can't draw a stick man, I'll be honest with you, but hell, I've got a hell of a creative streak in me. So it's this unicorn personality. The one side being extremely analytical and the other side being extremely creative. And then I realized, but there's a wonderful synergy between the two. And from there on, my career just skyrocketed, because that is also the start of big data. You will remember, right, in the early 2000s, that's really where big data sets and understanding your customers started becoming a real thing. And marketing moved from being the 4 Ps, which are still relevant, I'm not saying they're not, to you cannot be a marketer if you cannot understand numbers. So that was how I went from econometrics and doing a PhD in econometrics to becoming a CMO. And 10 years after I completed my PhD and I just started working at ABI, I realized I'm now going to be in a C-suite. I need to know about supply chain. I need to be able to talk to the merchants. I need to be able to talk, across the value chain. So I actually did an MBA part-time. Right. And everybody said, but Mel, you've got a PhD. I said, guys, you don't understand. I need to be able to sit in a boardroom and speak to these guys and be able to understand their lingo, because they're going to be my biggest clients. And that was just where my career just went in this direction. And to me, it was God sent. And then I understood many moons ago when my brother said, the clever kids study econometrics. And that was sort of my segue. And today, do I build econometric models? No, we've got wonderful people doing it for us. But do I use my analytical acumen every single day? And do I make sure that I build it into strategy? Absolutely. And do I do the pretty pictures and the wonderful creative stuff? Absolutely. So it was really an interesting turn of events. And, it's also sometimes just where destiny puts you. So at the time that I got roped into this, I was running my own business in a small little town in South Africa. Well, it's not that small. If people hear me saying it's a small little town, they're going to crucify me. So let me say a medium-sized town in South Africa called Potchefstroom, right? It was in a rural area, and I actually ran a computer center for kids to teach them maths at that time, because I was in between 2 relationships, and I wanted to raise my kids there. And my sister was working for SAB, but on the beer side at that time. And when one person asks another person, do you know of a person that has these skills? And that person says, yes, let me tell you, my sister has those skills. And so the universe connects those dots. And if you are ready at that point in time to take that leap of faith, it can put you in a completely different space where you never thought you would end up. So I've been very blessed in that sense. And Boyce and I, to this day, have contact. He heads up a very big wine industry body in South Africa. And if he did not convince me that day that econometricians can be marketers, right, I would never have sat here with you, and I might have become a boring professor. I would never be boring, never. But yeah, so that was a big one for me. And today, when I appointed 3 years ago, I appointed a super exciting brand executive for Clicks, and guess what qualification she has? A master's in econometrics, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So the industry has changed a lot. And I always say to the young guys working for me, it's not that I want you to be an analyst, but if you don't understand the insight, if you can't take a set of numbers that somebody else can crunch for you, right? But at the end of the day, you must take the insight and you must do the aha thing with it. whether it is the color that you're going to put on the packaging or the subject line in an email or whatever campaign, then you are going to become redundant. And today there are so many tools. I mean, with AI, the way it is actually booming in our industry. It is such an opportunity. So I'm super excited. So as you can see, I can also talk for an hour
Oh
about
man,
that as
no,
well.
no,
But that is,
you are my perfect guest because when I have conversation with someone like you, I never stop writing, and it's a dream episode for me when I listen to an episode and I'm able to write things down. Things that stand out to me, things that are, probably I want to double down on, or things I probably want to look into later. So it's a dream episode for me. So please,
good.
as much as possible, as long as you don't run out of word count, I'm good to go.
Not at all. I'm a Gemini. There's no ways I can ever run out of words, ever.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Oh man, there's a lot to double down on in what you just said. I think as you were talking about data and understanding data and making sense of data or numbers and all of these things, what came to mind was a conversation I had with, Dawn again. As she said, you cannot say you understand consumers or customers if you are unable to analyze behavioral data in real time and at scale. And that philosophy obviously reflects in their own business and everything that they are doing. And it's so refreshing to kind of see, for someone like you who was at the beginning of the whole conversation around big data, while you were studying econometrics for a different set of reasons. Let's not get into it. Little did you know that you were being set up for this role that you were going to sit in for marketing. So I think it's really remarkable, like just listening to your journey. Man, I I hope that I am able to stay on script because, as you can tell, I'm looking at my notes and I'm thinking, but um, but I wanted to ask you because you touched on it very briefly earlier. When you think about your journey from SAB to where you are today, by the way, I think that anyone who's ever worked at SAB, um, they need to be putting it in their profile. The same way people say ex Google, ex Meta. Everyone who's worked at SAB needs to say ex SAB Miller
I
because
cannot, I cannot agree with you more.
it's incredible. I mean, I've spoken to CMOs who, off the record, say, "Hey, Tayo, if I'm being honest with you, when I'm looking at the CV, at least within the South African market, and I see SAB Miller there, I want to interview that person first before anybody else." And that's really remarkable. Just think that an institution is responsible for that level of knowledge transfer and building up skill sets within marketing. When you look at your journey from there to where you are today, what would you say were the very critical inflection points? What have been those key turning points that you feel most deeply shaped your philosophy on brand and marketing?
Yeah. So for me, Taya, when I thought about this, I think there were four key critical moments in my career. The first one was when I moved to the South African Reserve Bank as a very young, first time employee, right? And as I said to you, the reason for that was one, I met my first female mentor there, Dr. Delian Small, who made a huge impression on me. But the reason why that was an inflection point, because I was at a very young age exposed to big thinking, right? And saying whatever decision you make here or whatever recommendation you make is going to have a substantial influence. So therefore, there's no room for error. You need to think. So that to me was a very big first one. The second inflection point for me was, and it ties to our discussion about family and careers, right? I knew that I wanted to be a mom, but I also knew that I wanted a career and I wanted to find a way of balancing it. So the second thing I did was when I took the decision to have children and still have a career, and find that academia afforded me that opportunity. So I switched over. I started working at the University of Pretoria, subsequently moved over to the University of Johannesburg. And for a period of 8-9 years, I was afforded the opportunity to have 2 beautiful children whilst finishing my PhD and having the privilege to run an econometric research unit with Prof. Lorraine Grayling, right? Which was like almost being in private sector, but just not. Are you with me? So, I mean, it exposed me to working with the private sector as being part of academia, doing consulting work, et cetera, et cetera. So I kept my foot in the door and I never felt that I fell behind. We were also very early adopters of IT technology to make, don't judge here. I don't judge, right? Because I'm going to give my age away. But I was the first lecturer, right? Wait for it, to get a 10 meg floppy drive, stiffy and floppy drive computer. I mean, people came to look at my computer. It was that amazing. I tell my children that, they go, "Ma, you are not serious. 10 meg. I said, 10 meg. It was huge. And so that to me was a definite point in my career where I could have gone into corporate, but I wanted this. I wanted to spend that time with my children and be present. Then, I mean, you can imagine my move to SAB at age 36, going into my first real corporate job, the impact that boys had on my life, the exposure to the Coca-Cola and SAB system. Can you imagine these giants, Tayo, to be exposed at the same time to the Coca-Cola system and to SAB Miller? I mean, I saw the world. I experienced incredible things, right? And I think to your point about SAB Miller, you know, working for them taught me that discipline. And you'll see when you meet SAB Miller people, they're very disciplined, right? The discipline of a research-led decision-making framework. Because I don't know if you've ever come across Norman Adamy. He was running SAB at the time, and he always said, if you can't measure it, then I don't want to hear about it. So that discipline of making sure that everything you test, you validate, you challenge the assumptions. That was a huge inflection point for me. A second last big inflection point for me was Makro, because that was where I moved over from FMCG to retail, which was super exciting, by the way. It was, I mean, and as you know, Makro at that time was already part of the Walmart stable, because Bassmart was just then bought out by Walmart. Okay. So it was my first real C-level position. And I learned the complexity of big box retail, right? Because if you can think big box retail, then going into smaller retail is sort of easier, because it's like, I don't know, Makro to me sometimes feels like 20 stores in one store.
Wow.
And really what was important for me there is to learn the perception of value, right? And price, that can make or break a business. Because often people think value means cheap, but it really does not. And it's there where I realized that the customer psychology is as important as operational efficiency. And that was super important, because remember, at an FMCG, you do not work with the end consumer, right? Now I'm in Makro. I'm at a short distance from my customer. And then my last inflection point was really Clicks, which was super unintentional. When I finished my stint at Dis-Chem, it was COVID. And I actually worked for my son to help him scale his business, because he was going to sell his business and move overseas with his family and start doing his MBA in Spain. So we scaled his business. And I was staying with him at the time. The twins were just born. So I had this wonderful opportunity in COVID to have this like surreal bubble where I could look after my 2 grandchildren, get to bond with them, and also help my son scale his business. And I thought I would never go back into corporate. And I'm not a big fan in LinkedIn. I don't go on there often enough, but now and then I'll check what's in my inbox. And I got this message that said, Mr. Vikash Singh, the new managing executive for Clicks, wants to talk to you about a position at Clicks. And I thought, but I'm living in Joburg. Why would they want me in Cape Town? I didn't even consider it. To make a long story short, that was the Monday evening. I sent a message and said, well, yeah, because it was a temporary position. And you wouldn't know about this. And this is an episode for another day. But Clicks had just gone through the Tresemme scandal, which will be in MBA textbooks for a long time. and they were looking for somebody just to look after the marketing team whilst they were recruiting.
Wow.
Well, that ended up being 3 months. And then they said, can you stay another 3 months? And I said, okay, I'll stay another 3 months. And before then, the 3 months were over, they offered me the permanent position and I moved down to Cape Town, and it just changed my life. You know, at Dis-Chem, I was exposed to a very different type of retail. So coming out of big box retail, I went into one where the trust factor, right? Because when you're working with a person's health, right, trust is huge. Where trust in wellness and products, it's non-negotiable, right? And this just set me up perfectly for my current role at Clicks. So I wasn't at Dis-Chem long. I was there for 2 years. But my current role at Clicks is where brand building and trust building go hand in hand.
Wow.
And that was just, to me, like the perfect apex. And across all of these shifts, right, the common thread has been the importance for me of connecting strategy, right, with the lived customer experience. So ensuring that what you promise at the top is delivered, you know, at the store floor, because that's where the rubber hit the road. So to me, there was just a golden thread across those 4 inflection points in my life, where sometimes it was a decision that I made. Sometimes it was an opportunity that came my way. But I've always been very conscious of, you know, listening to that inner voice that you have in your gut. And I'm stupid. And this is honestly my last but greatest job. People ask me, what is the greatest job you've had? And I always say that Clicks has been it's been an amazing 4 years. I loved working in the Coke and SAB system because of the unbelievable exposure. But this has been, you know, just the culmination of everything, every study, every life decision, and every set of exposure and experience just culminated into this role. And I love mentoring, Ayete. You know, I love mentoring young people. I love building careers. And this has afforded me that now. So that sort of as I transition into retirement, yes, that word, it's getting there. Somebody said to me, Mala, you're going to do consulting. And I said, actually, I don't want to do consulting. I just want to work with young people building careers and telling them this amazing story that you don't have to rush up the corporate ladder. I was 36 when I put my first foot on a corporate ladder, right? I was 10 years behind my peers. And here I am today, ahead of them. In any case, I can go on like that.
Wow.
So those were really the big, you know, inflection points for me in my career.
Wow. Thank you very much. That's really remarkable. I'm tempted to double down on the retirement part, but I won't. So we can make progress. Imagine that we are already 30 minutes in.
We're having fun, the two of us.
I'm telling you, man, I'm having a great time. The next question I was going to ask you was about, you know, moving from these different industries or sectors. What fundamentals, you know, of brand building or customer growth would you say have proven universal, and where did you have to completely rewrite your playbook? I know that just now you spoke about one common thread, which was, you know, the intersection between strategy and the lived customer experience. And I think that, you know, as you have said, that transcends whatever sector we're talking about, right? So
Exactly.
I'm going to assume that is one thing that has proven universal based on what you've said. And some of the other things you mentioned in the last response to my question was the tension between value and price. And also this marriage between customer psychology and operational efficiency. Now, is there something else you want to add to this mix, or you want to lay it out in a more digestible format for me? Remember, the question is the what has proven to be universal, and in what areas did you have to rewrite the playbook?
So I think you've summed it up very well. But so let me expand a bit on that. So I mean, I've learned something about customers in every one of the industries that I've worked in. But the core of the customer focus, as you say, has remained. I mean, in every sector, I think I can sum it up like this. I would say customers want 3 things, right? 3 constants. They want trust, they want consistency, and they want value. right? And the way that you deliver it can change dramatically. Like in FMCG, it was all about the mass distribution and creating brand affinity, right? In pharmacy retail, it's about that personalized service and that credibility that you build. So the fundamentals are universal, but your playbook is always customized to where you are.
Interesting.
And I think that's the core of a good marketer, is that actually a customer is quite simple in what they want, right? It's how you can pivot in terms of their need in that specific industry and how you can deliver. Because let me tell you, value in Clicks is very different from value in Makro. Same customer though. So to me, I've never had to rewrite a playbook. I had to pivot the playbooks in terms of the industry that I was in.
Interesting. So the core are those three things: trust, consistency, and value. Yeah. And then figuring out what that means for the customer in the sector or industry that you were in.
Correct.
For retail, you said that was personalized service and...
So for me, it's personalized service and really credibility. Because especially in the pharmaceutical, and I mean, I guess even further than that now, Tayo, because remember, in the entire retail sector, if you think about it, has become extremely data driven, right? So credibility has taken on not just, be credible in terms of the products that you put on your shelf, but also be credible with what you do with my information, because I am entrusting you with my information. So it's given a whole new dimension to retail. I mean, you just have to look around you about how many people are trying to get your information, whether it's through an app or a loyalty program. And I think that to me, and it goes hand in hand with the personalized service, right? Because if you know me, you can cater for me, but don't be creepy, right? Don't try and pretend that you know me too well. I'm not your mate, right? So yeah, and I think customers, their access to information, I mean, if you just think about pricing, Tayo, I mean, where are the days where you wondered what another company was charging? You just go onto the internet, for God's sake, you scrape the pricing and you've got it. So is price a differentiator anymore? And, I beg to differ, because we can all now just follow each other's pricing, right? It's about that intrinsic trust and value and the credibility that you bring as a retailer.
Okay. Now, trust. I think that you've spoken about trust repeatedly, even before you laid out those 3 points about what customers want. Now, how can brands build trust?
Yeah.
If especially in the retail space, where the some of the fundamental challenges around pricing, like you've spoken about, and every other thing that comes with that, but I think the question is, how can brands build trust, especially in the retail space?
And what is even more important in the retail space is it's not only building trust in your own brand, in this case being Clicks, but you are also entrusted with the brands of your FMCG suppliers, right? So it's sort of a double whammy. Now, I think fundamentally customers have become skeptical, right? About anything from pricing to product availability to after sales service. They've become skeptical. You just have to look at social media and how they can kind of at Clicks, right? And that's why I say this is my favorite job, because it talks to my value system, right? Our approach has always been proof over promise, right? Instead of telling a customer, you can trust us. I can make a beautiful TV ad, Tayo, telling you can trust us, right? But what we try to do is rather live that promise through things like transparent pricing, consistent availability of products. Now, do you get it right every single time? Hell no, right? But at least you're trying, right? Quality guarantees. If I tell you can bring back your toaster, if it doesn't work, no questions asked, then I have to live that. And then creating proper customer feedback loops. So we invest heavily in platforms that can get the customer to talk to us, whether it is a bot, a frequently asked question, a 24/7 agent, social media availability, et cetera, because trust is something that you earn over time. You can lose it in a second, but you build it through reliability. Are you with me? And you build it through consistency. It's not a once-off marketing claim. And I love this one saying that I heard somebody say the other day that said, trust is not built in a boardroom. It is earned in the aisle. I love that. That just so resonated, you know. If you've got a sick child and you get to a Clicks 5 minutes before closing time and you cannot find a pharmacist or somebody that can give you an idea of what can I give this child? How can I break a fever, right? You are shot. And that's why it is so important that in that aisle, that's why we need to empower our store staff, right? Because at the end of the day, that's where the truth happens. And I think just being able to for customers to access you across an omni-channel and having the same experience across, whether I'm on your website, whether I'm talking to your call center, whether I'm in a store, and just responding to these guys timelessly. And it is a balancing act, Etayo. I mean, for those of you that are listening to this podcast, go and Google the Tresemme scandal, where a young social media associate clipped a portion of a supplier ad and placed it on social media, and all hell broke loose. And the trust that Clicks had been building for 50 years, right, got just erased in one incident. Our stores were gutted. There were, I think, about 45 stores that were actually just razed down, and we were the dogs, right, of the retail industry. And in a period of this happened about 5 years ago. We have had to rebuild this trust without standing on a soapbox and saying, oh, you can trust us. No. We had to earn back that trust. And you know, when South Africa is in a riot and the only medical care that is open is your local Clicks, wow, to a point where the Santaco taxis were actually pulling their taxis around the Clicks to protect it, then you know you've earned back the trust of society, right? And it's a constant maintenance of that trust and delivering on it. But, and it's something that you work on consistently. It's not something that you get and then you've got it and you tick and you say, we are trusted, and you move on. It is something that we talk about, in our boardrooms probably on a daily basis.
Wow. That's amazing. You know, I think that's an incredible story. And I think that, you know, I cannot imagine being in the shoes of the team, you know, in the heat of that particular experience. That's really wild. If I attempt to recap what you just said about building trust, I think my favorite part of it is definitely the quote, and I could tell that it was your favorite as well. And it's, you don't build trust in the boardroom, it is earned on the aisle. Like, correct. You can be very sure that in the next few weeks or few months, whenever this podcast drops, you're going to have a picture of you on a graphic with that quote right next to it.
Gotcha.
So
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Putting that ahead of time. I love what you said about proof over promise. And I think that, you know, oh man, and you did say, like, this isn't just peculiar to retail, you know, even in terms of the ideology that, you know, brands need to live with. What you've said so far seems to have focused mostly on the Clicks brand, right? How do you manage that trust, you know, quotient or factor when it has to do with one of the brands that you carry?
Yeah, exactly. Because, I mean, they entrust us, right, with brands that they've spent millions developing. And I'll tell you this much, when the Tresemme scandal broke, I mean, that was a brand as well as a retailer. The collaboration between the two companies were amazing, Etayo, right? It was not a finger pointing. It was them. It was, guys, we're in a joint situation. And it is, you know, it's that relationship building. If you talk about trust, right? It's not just building trust with your consumer, right? It's building trust with your supplier. It's building trust with your employees. If trust is not at the core of what you do, you are going to be in trouble. And I think working with suppliers in terms of the brands that we carry of them, in things, and I mean, we've got a committee that meets every afternoon at 3:00. It's called the Advertising Advisory Committee. And it's a team of people in the building, can be from finance, HR, whatever, that sift through literally every single piece of information that will be customer facing to ensure that we never have a tresemme again. And brands have often sent us, because remember, we also exhibit their advertising material from a brand perspective, whether it's on a digital screen or on social media. And we've often said, guys, this is not who we are. We're not going to have this picture, this slogan, this angle. And the initial reaction is, but with a brand owner, we say, yes, but we carry that brand to your customer, and we're the custodian of that customer. And it is so interesting how they have just learned to trust that process so implicitly, because they know that if you've got that consumer hat on, that is your end goal, then we're all playing from the same hymn book.
Yeah.
And I think that's been crucial to us. Of course, the relationship that the merchants have with the suppliers, I mean, those are key. That's their day job, right? They live and breathe these relationships. But yeah, it's fun. And for me, it has been fun to sit on both sides of the fence, because there's a definite difference in the psyche of a brand owner and a psyche of a retailer. You know, there is a difference, and it's complementary. It's not that it's, opposing.
Wow. I think that, I think the key word there, and I like that you highlighted that when we talk about trust, it's not just trust, it's trust across, the value chain, whether it's the owners of the brand, or the team members, every stakeholder, the customer, is trust across board. And I think that, the point you made about partnership as well, which I think trust is the currency with which we manage those kinds of relationships, is what really, how well we've invested in that is what shows up in those moments of crisis. So I think that when those moments like that happen, and we pray they never happen again, it's that in those moments is when the amount of investment we've made in that trust, in that partnership, now really starts to show up. And I think that's really remarkable. I wanted to move to the conversation about differentiation, and I know that you talked about this earlier as well. Like, no longer can we differentiate on price, right? Because I can just check out what you're pricing, and I can be as competitive as I need to be. Or what some people might refer to as promotional noise, right? How do you think about brand positioning in a space like this, especially in this old pharmacy retail space where the competition is pretty rife?
Look, and I think that it's yet to become even more, right? I think the South African pharmacy retail space is fiercely competitive, right? And, I've been very outspoken about this, but I'm going to say it. All right. I think these price wars are just a race to the bottom. They're just a race to the bottom. And, our strategy at Clicks has really been to differentiate on an emotional territory rather than just economic. And I'm not saying that not on economic, I'm saying not just on that. For Clicks, it's really how you position yourself. Because remember, we are a health, wellness, and beauty retailer. And in amongst that, there's a bit of beauty, there's a bit of domestics, etc., etc. But we position ourselves as the experts in wellness and beauty, right? Because we want to empower our customers to feel good, but also live well. Now, that allows you to compete on more than just price. Because if you can get into the mind space and the emotional space of a customer when it comes to their health, right? It's harder. That creation of loyalty is harder to erode for your competitors. Because if you then have that cheap nappy special elsewhere, yes, they'll go there, they'll buy the cheap nappy, but they'll come back. And that's not loyalty. And we were extremely privileged and honored to be awarded the Kantar, Kantar Award for the most differentiated brand. And I think it's because we've got this ethos, which I absolutely love, which says Clicks is there to help people build a healthier future. And in that, we've got 4 pillars. We're saying we want people to build healthier lives. So it's everything about their health and their wellness. We want to, in building a better planet, a healthier planet. So we look at things like sustainability, et cetera, a healthier economy. I cannot tell you how excited I am about our SED programs that we do with women companies specifically. And then also building a healthier community where we look at free clinic services, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really a holistic view of looking at a customer. Now, I'll tell you, to my mind, when it comes to differentiation, Clicks Club Card, which is, I don't know if you know this, but it's been voted a lot of times as the most used loyalty program in South Africa. That's across banks, across everything, right?
Wow.
And we've got a 82% participation in sales. That means
Wow.
8.2 rands of every 10 rand sale is swiped through a club card. Now that is loyalty for you, right? We've got an amazing partner ecosystem. We're in our 30th year, right? It's also the oldest retail program in Africa, by the way. So I think that differentiates us. Beauty then was added on in the last couple of years as a key differentiator, because in COVID, that whole lipstick effect and women training their men into grooming, et cetera, et cetera. And so we also differentiate through experiential means. Like we've got what we call the Clicks Beauty Playground. It's an event once a year. Let me tell you, it's the most coveted tickets that women go mad. If you've seen women go mad, this is where they go mad, right? We sell out 6,000 tickets. I kid you not, in less than 10 minutes. It's like this, and they're gone, right? Women come for 2 days and they just experience this playground of beauty. So it's really been positioning ourselves as expert in selected areas rather than saying we are the cheapest pharmacy. Come to us because we're cheap. No, you come to us because we give you great value, which in some instances might be the cheapest price. Correct. But also it's a holistic experience. And that has been key, I think, to the huge success that we've seen over the last couple of years. And we know that more competition is coming. But I do think that we've differentiated on different angles, in the field.
Yeah, man. Oh, man. Mel. Oh, my goodness.
Funny. I told you this was my favorite job.
Oh, Mel. Come on. Come on. Wow. That was a masterclass in differentiating within this space. Like I can't even be like I'm looking at what you said about Kanta's award as most differentiated brand. For a brand that plays in the retail space.
Exactly.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah, we're very proud of that one. We've worked very hard.
You and I need to set up, and I'm not kidding, and I'm going to put you on the spot here. I said I don't put people on the spot, but I'm going to make an exception right now. You and I need to have a masterclass on this for the retail space. I mean,
perfect. I'm in.
Our 30 minutes. And I also know that in view of your next life stage, you'd be very open to something like this. So
absolutely.
All right. Fantastic. Now, to everybody who's listening, you guys bear us witness. Mel has committed. We'll make it happen. We'll set it up and see how this goes. All right, guys. Now, the next thing I want to talk about. Oh, man. Can you believe, Mel, that we are already 50 minutes in?
I can. Oh, it's been wonderful.
Oh my goodness, it's unbelievable. Anyway, let's keep going. Now I want to move into data, loyalty, customer centricity, all these conversations. The first question is about, with your background, in econometrics, data science, all this really interesting stuff. How are you leveraging customer data at Clicks to shape not just marketing campaigns, but an entire business decision?
I think it's an extremely important question because, I mean, honestly, I as you say, I have always seen data as more than a marketing tool. I get so annoyed when people say, "Oh, I use my data," and then I send a mail and say, "Hi, Teo, here's a mail for you." No, that's not it.
Please don't do that again. Don't do that again. Go on.
Data, to my mind, it's like it's a business compass, right? I see it as that is where you directionally should go because we use you can imagine with a participation rate of 82%, the rich data that we have on our customers. And we use that customer purchase behavior to literally inform everything that we do, whether it is that personalized comms that says, dear Airtire, right? But also product ranging, right? Pricing strategies, store design, store layout, and even community level service offerings, right? Because in some communities, if you put in a clinic, nothing will happen and nobody will access it. But in other areas, that might be the only facility that they have. So it ensures that the data is driving growth at a macro and a micro level. It's not just powering targeted advertising, because that's not what data is. Yes, it's there. It should do some targeted advertising as well. And I always say this to my team. I said, we don't just use data to sell more. We use it to service better, right? Because if I have the right product on the shelf based on that area's need, right, I'm going to service you better. If I put the right clinic in the right spot, if I put the right size of store, and yes, if I send you beautiful product recommendations, etc. So for us, because loyalty is at the core of what we do, customer loyalty is at the core of what we do. We want to make sure that the data that you entrust me with, because if I give you my information and I allow you to see what I'm buying, I want you to use it with great care and feed it back to me. So to me, that is, if that's your mindset when it comes to data and strategy, then you are seldomly going to go wrong. Yes, at the end of the day, we're not a charity organization, right? We want to make a profit. So we do want to sell you stuff. But I always believe that if I talk to your heart and I get you loyal to me, then the selling is inevitable, right?
Yes.
You're going to buy from me in any case. And I think that's how we have approached it. We also, there's basically a three level data strategy. Obviously, you've got your first level data, right? Which is the stuff that you buy from us. I can see what you bought. There's the second party data, right? Because you also, do your fuel at Engine. You have your nails done at Sorbet. Those are all our partners. So I know what your behavior is there as well. And then we also make use of third-party data where I can see, Airtire, when he buys at Clicks, might be let's call him a bare basket shopper. He just comes in for a meal deal and leaves. But if I look at him outside of Clicks, he's actually a guy that we should get into Clicks and sell lots of stuff to. And that to us was a huge aha, that there were a huge amount of males that were shopping occasionally at our stores, but not the full basket. But then when we looked at their behavior outside, they had the potential to be strong candidates. And we started this movement called the Bro Nation, the Clicks Bro Nation, where we literally used grooming as the in, right? But it was not just about grooming. It was also about single dads having to navigate work-life pressure, etc., depression, etc. And so we created this movement, and it's going to be as big as Beauty Playground for women. We had a big soccer five-a-side event this year where we brought all the bros together. So, and that was born out of a rich insight, so much so that the Doves of the world and the Niveas of the world and the Gillettes of the world were just like, which is on us, please, we need to be part of this. So it was great for our suppliers as well, because we had that richness of data. If we had looked only at our own data, we would have said, you know what, males come in now and then. But in fact, we have now grown our share of the male grooming market hand over fist. So it's really that type of use of data that we want to do and see that strategy come alive and then measure it and hone it and make it better. And yeah, look, I could go on forever. You can see This is a super passionate thing for me. So, and I'm so acutely aware of the trust that data is entrusted to you. You can't waste it. When you waste data, I always say to the team, data is our gold. It's our gold. If we lose the right to understand what you do in my store, I've lost a lot.
Wow. On the conversation about this loyalty program, right? Because obviously loyalty programs are not new, yeah? The question I'm about to ask you is split into two parts, but you've answered the first one in terms of what's the commercial case for loyalty investment. You've talked about what the numbers are looking like for you guys, so we don't have to go down that road again. But what I want you to maybe shed a bit more light on is, what are people getting wrong about loyalty programs? Like, what do people still get wrong about designing these programs in a way that truly drive value for the business? What are people getting wrong?
Well, look, I'm going to give you two things that I believe we are doing wrong. The one thing is that, you see, this is a favorite topic of mine. I'm going to get in trouble for this one day. I believe that there are too many discount programs that are masked as loyalty programs. If you've got a discount,
hold on. We can literally just end this podcast here right now. I'm not in the retail. Well, I am in the retail space. My wife does business in the retail space, but that's a punchline right there. Like, I feel like, okay, I'm sorry I interrupted you. I couldn't help
please
myself.
do.
I couldn't help myself. Please carry on.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I feel, right? If you want to give somebody a discount card, right, then call it a discount card. Don't pretend that it's a loyalty card, because if you are not changing fundamental behavior, right, it's not loyalty. So, and I think a lot of people are rushing towards this customer trend of immediate satisfaction. I believe that a loyalty program should train its customers to wait for stuff, that there's a hybrid. Do we have some instances where we do a bit of, yes, come into the store, swipe your card and get this discount? Absolutely. But we only give our cash back 2 months, in 2-month cycles. And to create that FOMO, and I want to build my cash back. So to me, that is firstly a fundamental error when people are designing loyalty programs. The second fundamental error is people design a loyalty program with the first thing in mind is, I want to get customer data. Now, let me tell you, the customers of today are so astute that they will catch you out on that. If you want to put a loyalty card in my hand, the only thing that you actually want is my telephone number and my email address to send me a whole load of BS, right? Then I pull back. And that's it gives a bad rep to loyalty programs. And I think if that's how you start out, you are setting yourself up to fail. There has to be a reason. There has to be a hook. There has to be an ecosystem. And it's not easy. I get it. But then rather be straight with the customer and say, look, I'm not going to call this loyalty, but I really want your information for the following reason. And I thought that Checker 6060 in South Africa did it really well recently, where they came back at their customers and they asked for more of their information. And I mean, even though it's a competitor of ours, I really gave them my information because they were very clear why they wanted my information. And I knew and I trusted that they were going to give me what they said they were going to give me. So to me, those are the two things that I think go wrong with loyalty, the understanding of what true loyalty really is. I can see you on my page. You are so on my page.
Oh, my days. Oh, man. Mel. Oh, Mel. Okay. I say this every time, I am a student of marketing, right? And I said this on my last recording. I say it on probably 50% of the recordings that I have. I'm a student of marketing. So when I'm in this types of conversation where, it's gems, I get excited. Like, marketing, if I could be as wealthy as I get excited about marketing, by now I should be a billionaire in dollars. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Different story entirely. But I'm saying, in essence, like, I knew that you were the perfect person to talk to when it came to retail. I'm enjoying every minute of this. And that's the problem.
I'm glad.
Now now we are 1 hour in. Oh my God. You do remember when I said 30? You remembered when I said, I think 45 or 50? Now we are 1 hour in. So now,
are we still there?
I've gotten feedback that the episodes tend to be too long, but so that's a good plug for the masterclass. I'm going to ask, maybe one, let me see. Let me see which one of these questions I will just pull up. Okay. I'd say I'll ask you a question about personalization, which is something you talked about as well in terms of, the programs that you run. And then the rest of the questions we can take during the masterclass and also double down on some of these conversations.
Got it.
Oh man, I just saw another question here that I really want to ask you. see how I'm geeking out. Anyway, I'm sorry guys. I'm sorry guys if you're listening and I seem to be stalling, but I'm really just trying to keep this okay. You know what we're going to do? I'm going to ask you this question about, from the boardroom to the store floor, right? And you don't have to go into great detail about that. We'll just save some of these for the masterclass, which could be a webinar or something. We'll finalize what that would look like.
Absolutely. I would love that.
Let's just speak on this boardroom to store floor point where, and you talked about this earlier as well, in terms of some of the things you consider very pivotal, that, marketers and brand owners need to think about in terms of the that intersection between strategy and lived customer experiences. You talked about, how trust isn't built in the boardroom, but, is earned on the aisle. And what I wanted to ask you was, in connecting strategy to that frontline experience and making sure it doesn't get lost between the boardroom, the slide decks, and the shop floor, how have you been able to manage and drive that in terms of what have you learned in how strategy can truly influence that experience on the shop floor beyond our presentations in the boardroom to actual lived experiences?
So I often say that a good strategy can easily die between PowerPoint and practice. Can very easily die between the two. I've made it a point over my career, Eyetayo, we spoke about SAB and the rigor and the disciplines there. And they had this unbelievable focus on you have to be in the trade. You have to be on the shop floor. You have to do trade visits. You have to do store visits. You have to talk to staff. You have to talk to customers, because only then can you see your strategy in action or test your strategy, right? Now, these sort of conversations that you have on this shop floor, they inform the adjustments that you're going to make. They're going to ensure alignment. And it keeps you, because your strategy has to be grounded in customer reality, right? Now, that closing of the loop between the boardroom and the shop floor for me is essential in building a brand that is lived and not just planned. Because I often find that brands plan and plan and plan, but it never lives. And so our managing execs are in stores. The stores hate it, you can imagine, because we are there. We check what is going on. When we roll out a certain strategy, we will be there understanding where the burning points are so that we can, but we also talk to our customers. So we've got a panel of customers, about 75,000 clicks customers. We call them clickers, right? That we literally ask questions about every single day. Right? They've given us permission to ask. And I can ask anything like, how do you like the new screens in the pharmacy? To, which product would you love to see on the shelf? Or give me feedback about the service in your store. Because that's the only way you can close that loop between the boardroom, the shop floor, and the actual customer experience. It does help getting feedback from your stores and from your regional staff. And that's why we have regular planning meetings with area managers, et cetera, to bring back those insights, because we've got 1,000 stores. It's impossible for me to visit all 1,000, right? It's impossible for anybody. When I was working for Makro, we had 22 stores. It took us 4 hours to walk the floor, but I could see all of them every 6 weeks. Now I don't have that privilege. It's creating those feedback loops for your customers and for your store staff to be able to feedback and keeping your your ear on the ground. I think those successful retailers, I can tell you, that come from old school, like the Ackermans and They visit their stores regularly. They are there. They don't sit in ivory towers and think they know what to do with the customer. I find it's a bit of a challenge with the younger generations that want to do everything on ChatGPT or on, and I'm saying, guys, there's nothing as good as testing your strategy and actually seeing what does it look like. So I've got an entire team of packaging designers that design all Clicks branded products. And they literally mock it up, go to the store, put it on the shelf, look at, oh, that height on that specific shelf, the pricing ticket is going to be, even to that level of detail. That's the only way, staying in touch with reality.
Wow. Wow. Man, I don't know, man. For anyone who's listening and is in the retail space, don't say I didn't do anything for you. Like this is just gold. This is just gold. Um, now, I want to talk about this in closing. As we plan for the masterclass and the webinar, there's a bunch of other conversations I want us to have. We will double down on some of the things you talked about, but I also want to talk about these, sort of divide or whatever you want to call it between the physical and the digital storefront, and what that actually looks like,
Gotcha.
in today's world, and I'm sure that you'll be able to speak to that. I also wanted to talk about, some of the things you're saying with private labeling and, brand building and marketing around that space as well. So there's a bunch of other conversations that I really, really love to dive into, but we're pressed for time now. So as we start to wind up, I want to tell you a quick story. It was about, I think it was about 5 a.m. It was 5 a.m. January 8th, 2021. I got a call from my brother. My phone rang. I was still fast asleep. And then my brother calls my wife. She clearly isn't as much of a deep sleeper as I am, but story for another day. And my wife picks up my brother's call, and he asks her, "Is Tyler still awake? Is Tyler awake? Please give him the phone." My wife wakes me up and gives me the phone, and I heard on the other side of the phone, "Daddy has passed." And for the first few minutes, obviously he had been ill, nothing serious, very brief. My dad died in his mid-80s, so it was really, and you could hardly tell if you saw him at the time. And that moment for like probably froze for a minute. Do you get what I mean? And for a couple of minutes before we set out to go to the hospital where he had been admitted, and then everything else followed. One of the things I look back fondly on is a documentary that I actually forced him to do, which was about a few years before this, probably about a year or 18 months or 2 years or whatever before this. He had called me and said, "Oh, there's this news, house that's been bothering me about doing a documentary and all of that stuff. I'm not interested." And I told him, like, "Well, Dad, like, I think your story is worth telling. Even as your son, I don't know the full thing, and I know that there's a lot that you can share based on your life experience, So he agreed to do it. It was a 2-hour long documentary. It's been gone now for about 4+ years. And occasionally I still go back to watch that documentary. And I think that it is the greatest gift he ever gave me. And I'm sure he's not even aware that he was giving it as a gift. Do you get what I mean? I haven't sat down to watch it with my kids yet, but I'm kind of saving it for the right moment, if you get what I mean. My kids are still fairly young, maybe, so I'm kind of, will they understand the context of this? So I'm looking forward to that. I shared that story to kind of talk about, your late dad and what that experience was like for you and how that impacted you. Can you tell me about that experience?
So this is a goosebump moment for me. So my dad passed away on the 16th of January of 2021, mid-80s. And I can tell you one thing, Itai, I think they're sitting now today in the great beyond, and they're looking at these two, chatting to each other and going, there we go. It was an amazing I know this is going to sound weird. So I had the opportunity. My dad was diagnosed with colon cancer in early November of 2020, right? And I had the opportunity to actually look after him until the day he died. I was actually lying next to him and I was singing Amazing Grace as he passed away. And my mom and I were there. And the last 2 weeks of his life, I actually slept on a day bed right next to his bed. And we just talked till what time at night, until a point where he wasn't lucid and awake anymore, but he would wake up and then he would see if I'm there and we would chat. And he made me promise I was going to look after my mom because he still saw her as the 17-year-old teenager that he married. The impact of understanding the unbelievableness of living a full life that you feel you've completed. I remember him talking me through, he's ready to meet his maker. He's ready to move on. And it was, for me, it was just such an amazing time. People would say, but Mel, wasn't it weird to see your dad die? And I said, it was the biggest privilege that I've ever had. And here's the kicker, right? I was between Dis-Chem and Clicks, between two very busy corporate careers where, life moved. And here I had this opportunity to not worry about a boss or a deadline. And that's why I said you have to be attuned to what life gives you at that moment, because I could also have said, oh my goodness, I'm not earning a big salary at the moment. What am I going to do? But it's as if God just planned this in my life, that I had this period that I could spend with him and my mom, and where I could be with him as he transitioned into the next phase. And it has made a profound impact on my life. You talk about your dad leaving that legacy. I've often felt that this is something that I want to do, right? We all feel we're never going to die. We're young and
Right.
But at the end of the day, to leave that legacy in a tangible format. Think about that video that you watch so many times, all those life lessons. And now that we've got the tech to do it, it's just so much easier. To me, it was about not looking back and saying, I should have, I must have. My dad, there were two things in his life that when I gave him, because the doctor didn't want to give him the bad news, and he asked me to tell my dad that he had a couple of months left. And I remember sitting with him in hospital, and he took my hands and he said, I'm not afraid to die, but there are two things that I want to fix before I die. And it was two specific conversations that he had to have. And he did exactly that. And I just have this sense of privilege. And how amazing is it that our dads passed away within 2 weeks from each other? I'm telling you, they're sitting there and they're just smiling.
Wow.
They're just smiling.
Wow.
I even went, my dad was an avid golfer. I have so many memories of walking the golf course with him, and he became very impatient when he was older, but he played for this, I call it the old people club, and they wore these like light blue blazers and pants, and it was the old people club. And I actually, he was cremated, but I had him, they put on his blazer. I put in his favorite golf shirt, and I put on his one pocket, I put a golf ball, and the other one, I put that, that little where you fix your own divot, because he was crazy about that. And then I put a Turkish delight in his top pocket, because I said to him, this is how you're going into eternity. Those are your favorite things. And God. It took the fear of death out of me, the ugly part of death, because I think, when you believe in something, right, then dying is it's not an issue. It's not an issue. And I can impart those lessons to my children, and we all speak of such fondness. We call them Andreisms. His name was Andre, and he just said the funniest things. And to this day, we would say, oh, there's another Andreism. So I hope I can leave that legacy to my children, and that they could look back, because imagine it in ending. If my dad that day, when I said to him, Daddy, I'm not going to study to be a medical doctor, right? I want to go to where my boyfriend is going. He could have turned around and said, no, you're not. Yeah. And I could not have sat where I am today. And he looked at me and he said, are you sure? He said, I cannot pay for you. And I said, that's fine. I'll find a bursary. And he stood by me through everything. And that to me has been the biggest driving force in my life. And he was, of course, very brainy, so I got my maths brain from him. So what a wonderful way to end this podcast. Hey,
Absolutely, Mel.
Just humbled. I'm just
Absolutely,
humbled.
Mel. Absolutely. Thank you very much.
So much.
Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it, the level of vulnerability to be able to speak about that openly. I don't take it lightly at all. And to feel, safe enough to have the conversation with me. I don't know how safe it is because, people will be listening to this later on, but, I think that, having these kinds of human conversations, it really help to let people understand that, at the end of the day, marketing is great. We all enjoy it and love it. It's what we do. But, there's more to life than marketing. Just can remind people of that. Thank you very much, Mel. Okay, let me change my tone. Let me change my tone. Thank you very much, Mel, for your time.
And we're gonna do that masterclass. I'm so looking forward to it.
We have to. I'll definitely reach out to you, shoot you an email or something, and then see how we can set this up, sometime soon. Do you have any last words for the listeners?
I am just this one thing that I always say to everybody: never, ever stop learning. Life is just so rich and there's so much going on at the moment. Just get on the wave. Don't stop learning, and just don't ever, ever stop. Just stop to smell the roses. And life is a fabulous journey. It's really what you make, the good and the bad. It's
amazing.
It's fun to be alive.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Mel. I wish that everyone who's listening could watch while you were saying that and the way your face lit up. But, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I do not take it lightly that you took time out of your holiday with your family to do this. I don't take it lightly that you are this open to talk about, these things that are personal to you, and to also kind of share of your expertise and experience as well. A big thank you to you for your time. And absolutely, very big thank you to everyone who also is watching this whenever, wherever. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I'll see you in the next one. See you at one.